No one could have predicted that a seasoned psychiatrist, whose career had been built on understanding the mind and its deepest workings, would come forward with a statement so profound, so unexpected, that it would shake the very foundation of how we view life, death, and the afterlife. In 1943, Dr. George Ritchie, a young psychiatrist, was hospitalized with severe pneumonia. His condition worsened rapidly, and at one point, he was declared clinically dead for several minutes. During this time, he had an extraordinary near-death experience that would forever alter his understanding of life and death. As his body lay lifeless, Dr. Ritchie felt himself leaving his physical form. He floated above his bed, observing the scene from a distance. He was not frightened, but rather intrigued. He found himself moving through a dark tunnel, a sensation of being drawn toward something. As he traveled, the darkness began to give way to a brilliant light in the distance. As he moved closer to the light, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace and love. The light wasn't just bright. It was filled with warmth and presence, and it seemed to radiate a divine energy. It was unlike anything he had ever encountered. The deeper he moved into this space, the more he felt disconnected from his earthly life, and yet more connected to everything around him. Suddenly, he heard a voice, gentle but commanding, saying, "George, you are not finished here." This was the moment of awakening. He realized he had crossed into another realm, a place beyond life as he knew it, and yet he was being told his journey wasn't over. Dr. Ritchie's near-death experience was not just a fleeting encounter, it was a profound shift in his perception of existence. The peace and love he felt in that moment stayed with him, even as his senses began to return to the physical world. As he was revived, he knew this experience had a deeper meaning, one that would guide his personal and professional life moving forward. In the midst of his extraordinary journey, Dr. George Ritchie found himself in the presence of a figure unlike any he had ever seen. This figure emanated a profound sense of love, compassion, and authority. There was no mistaking the identity of the being before him. It was Jesus Christ. Dr. Ritchie recalled feeling an overwhelming sense of peace wash over him as he stood before this divine figure. He was not in awe out of fear, but in awe of the love that seemed to radiate from Jesus. The warmth and light surrounding him were so intense that it felt as though the very essence of the universe was contained in his being. During their encounter, Jesus spoke to Dr. Ritchie, not with words of condemnation, but with a deep, understanding compassion. He showed Dr. Ritchie his life in a way that was more revealing than any self-reflection the young psychiatrist had ever known. Ritchie saw his moments of selfishness, times when he had hurt others, and the choices he had made that were not aligned with the path of love and selflessness. It wasn't just the actions that were shown to him, but also the feelings, the ripples those actions created in the lives of others. The experience was not one of judgment but of understanding, an understanding of human frailty and the opportunity for growth and redemption. Dr. Ritchie saw how his life had impacted others, and how in his pursuit of knowledge and career, he had neglected the deeper spiritual truths that could guide his heart and soul. He felt a call to something greater, a deeper purpose beyond his medical work. In that moment, Dr. Ritchie understood that his life had been leading him toward this encounter, toward a higher understanding of existence and the interconnectedness of all people. The experience left him profoundly changed. It was as if he had been shown the true nature of life, the divine, and the path toward spiritual awakening. When Dr. Ritchie returned to his earthly body, he carried with him the deep, unwavering knowledge of the love and truth that Jesus had revealed to him. This encounter became the cornerstone of his faith and the foundation of his future work, as he sought to share the lessons he had learned with others. His NDE was not just a brush with death, but a transformative spiritual awakening that reshaped his life forever. Dr. George Ritchie's near-death experience took him on a journey through realms that seemed to exist beyond the comprehension of human understanding. It wasn't merely an experience of wandering in the afterlife, but rather a profound and vivid exploration of the contrasts between spiritual states. As Dr. Ritchie was guided through these realms, he came to understand the vast spectrum of human existence and the choices we make that influence our destiny. The first realm he entered was not one of peace or tranquility, but rather a place filled with a sense of despair. Dr. Ritchie described it as a dark city, one that felt suffocating, filled with a heavy and oppressive atmosphere. There were no visible forms of life here, only a sense of emptiness, as though everything in the realm was devoid of meaning or purpose. It felt like a place frozen in time, where souls who had fallen into spiritual darkness had become trapped. He understood that this was not a place where souls were meant to remain. It was a reflection of a soul's separation from divine love. As Dr. Ritchie moved through this dark and desolate realm, he began to realize that this place mirrored the choices individuals made in life. He saw that those who lingered here were not merely punished by an external force, but were in a self-imposed state of isolation. This realm represented the consequences of a life lived in spiritual detachment, one that focused on material pursuits, selfishness, and a lack of awareness of higher truths. But as Dr. Ritchie continued his journey, the dark city began to fade. He was drawn to a new realm, one filled with brilliant, radiant light. It was as though the very air itself shimmered with peace and love. This realm was starkly different from the first. There was no sense of heaviness, no feelings of isolation. Instead, Dr. Ritchie felt a profound sense of belonging, as though he had entered a space where all things were aligned with divine truth. Here, there were beings of light, radiant and full of love, who greeted him with warmth and compassion. In this luminous realm, everything seemed to be in perfect harmony. Dr. Ritchie realized that this was a representation of the highest spiritual state, a place where souls had come into full alignment with divine love and truth. It was a realm of healing, peace, and ultimate fulfillment. He could feel that this place was not just an abstract ideal, but the very essence of existence, a space where love, compassion, and spiritual awakening reigned supreme. As he walked through this realm, he began to understand that the contrast between the dark, oppressive city and this radiant realm was not merely a reflection of external circumstances, but a manifestation of the internal choices that shape a soul's journey. In this place of light, Dr. Ritchie witnessed the interconnectedness of all things, every being, every soul, existing in a perfect web of love and unity. He felt that this was the true nature of the universe, a universe where love and compassion bind everything together. What struck him most profoundly during his journey was the realization that these realms were not fixed or permanent destinations. They were reflective of a soul's current state and the choices it made during its earthly life. The dark realm was not a place of eternal damnation, but a state of being that could be transcended through spiritual awakening and transformation. The radiant realm, on the other hand, was not an unreachable paradise, but a reflection of the potential for all souls to attain, a state of love, peace, and unity with the divine. Dr. Ritchie was given the understanding that the journey through these realms was not limited to the afterlife, but mirrored the spiritual journey of each individual on earth. Each soul, he realized, has the capacity to choose the path that leads to light and love, or one that leads to darkness and despair. The realms he visited during his NDE were not just places, they were states of being, and they offered profound insight into the choices that shape our lives and our afterlife. Upon returning to his earthly body, Dr. Ritchie carried with him the knowledge of these realms and their significance. The journey through these realms deeply impacted his understanding of life, death, and the afterlife. He knew that it was not enough to simply seek knowledge in the material world. True understanding came through spiritual awareness and the cultivation of love, compassion, and a connection to the divine. These realms were not just visions, but a call to live a life that was aligned with the higher truths he had been shown. They were a reminder that the choices we make, the lives we lead, and the love we cultivate have eternal significance, shaping our destiny and the realms we enter after death. One of the most profound and eye-opening aspects of Dr. George Ritchie's near-death experience was the life review he underwent during his journey. This wasn't merely a momentary glance at his past, rather it was a deep, soul-shaking reflection that unraveled the very fabric of his life choices, values, and actions. It was as if time itself stood still, and Dr. Ritchie was allowed to witness every action, every decision, and every moment that had shaped his existence. In this life review, Dr. Ritchie found himself looking back at his entire life, from childhood to his present moment. But it wasn't just a passive observation. He was fully immersed in the emotions and consequences of his actions. He didn't simply see what he had done. He felt it. The joy, the pain, the love, and the harm that his actions had caused rippled through his consciousness. Every instance where he had acted selfishly, thoughtlessly, or in ways that disconnected him from others stood before him like an open book. What was particularly striking about the experience was how vividly Dr. Ritchie could feel the impact of his decisions on the lives of others. He saw how the people he interacted with were affected, both positively and negatively, by his words and actions. Moments that seemed insignificant at the time took on new meaning as he witnessed how they rippled outward, affecting the course of other lives. Dr. Ritchie could feel the emotional weight of each interaction, whether it was a kind gesture or a thoughtless comment that had caused pain. He saw how his life, like everyone's, was intertwined with the lives of others in ways he had never fully understood. During this life review, Dr. Ritchie also encountered moments where he was able to see the deeper spiritual significance of his choices. He realized that each decision, whether large or small, carried eternal weight. His selfish acts had created ripples of negativity, while his acts of kindness and love had left lasting positive marks on the souls of those he encountered. He understood that the true measure of a person's life wasn't found in wealth, status, or accomplishments, but in the love and compassion they extended to others. He was shown that every act of kindness, no matter how seemingly trivial, had immense spiritual significance. As Dr. Ritchie continued to reflect on his life, he also came to a powerful realization about the choices he had made that had brought him to this point in time. His experiences in the realms of darkness and light had already shown him the consequences of those choices, but the life review provided even deeper clarity. He understood that the path he had chosen up until that point was shaped by his ignorance and limited understanding of the true nature of life and the divine. He was shown that his material pursuits, his self-centered tendencies, and his reluctance to embrace love and spiritual truths had kept him from living in harmony with his higher purpose. But there was also a sense of hope in this review. Dr. Ritchie realized that the life review wasn't a judgment in the traditional sense, but rather an opportunity for spiritual awakening and growth. It was as though he had been given the chance to see his life through a divine lens, a lens of love, mercy, and understanding. He understood that the purpose of this review was not to condemn him, but to help him understand the transformative power of love, compassion, and spiritual awareness. Dr. Ritchie saw that each moment of his life held potential for change, growth, and redemption. His past actions, while significant, didn't define his eternal soul. What mattered most was the choice to embrace love, forgiveness, and spiritual growth moving forward. He realized that each person, regardless of their past, had the ability to change the trajectory of their soul by living in alignment with higher truths. This life review left a lasting imprint on Dr. Ritchie's soul. It shaped his future choices and led him to adopt a life of greater awareness and service to others. He understood that life wasn't about achieving success in the material world, but about cultivating a life of love, compassion, and spiritual understanding. His NDE had given him a new vision, one that transcended the physical realm and focused on the eternal spiritual truth that bound all beings together. This realization not only changed his outlook on life, but became the foundation for his future work as a psychiatrist and advocate for spiritual growth. When Dr. Ritchie returned to his body, he did so with a deep understanding of the profound interconnectedness of all things. He knew that his life was part of a much larger story, one that wasn't defined by his earthly accomplishments, but by his spiritual journey and the love he shared with others. The life review had shown him the truth of his soul's journey. It was a journey of growth, learning, and transformation, with the ultimate goal of returning to divine love. When Dr. George Ritchie's near-death experience came to an end and he was revived back into his body, he felt a profound sense of responsibility and purpose. He wasn't the same person who had entered the hospital just days earlier. The spiritual lessons he had learned, the truth he had encountered, and the love he had felt during his NDE became the driving forces behind his life moving forward. He understood that he had been given a second chance, not just to live, but to live with a mission. This newfound sense of purpose led him to dedicate his life to understanding the nature of consciousness, death, and spirituality. As a psychiatrist, Dr. Ritchie felt compelled to share the insights he had gained from his NDE with others. He became a passionate advocate for the exploration of spiritual experiences, particularly near-death experiences, and how they could offer profound insight into life, the afterlife, and the soul's eternal journey.
His experience also deepened his own faith and connection to God. He began to see his work not just as a professional endeavor, but as a divine calling to help others understand the deeper meaning of life and the spiritual realms. Dr. Ritchie's life mission was now clear: to help others awaken to their spiritual nature and encourage them to live in alignment with love, compassion, and divine truth. His NDE had transformed him from a man who had once been skeptical of the afterlife to someone who felt deeply connected to the spiritual truths that transcend the physical world. Dr. Ritchie's journey didn't end with his NDE. It was only the beginning. He went on to write a book about his experience, Return from Tomorrow, where he shared the insights he had gained and the lessons that had reshaped his understanding of life and death. His work touched the lives of countless people, providing them with the comfort of knowing that death is not an end, but a transition to a greater spiritual reality. His return from the other side, armed with a mission to share the truth of life and the afterlife, became a beacon of hope for all who were searching for deeper meaning and understanding.